with Dolmio.
Dolmio lasagna. When's your Dolmio day?
One of the leading figurative painters of the 20th century, Lucian Freud, has died aged 88. His range of subjects stretched from the Queen to Sue, the benefits supervisor. And while they weren't necessarily flattering, they were certainly valuable, setting new records for fees paid to a living artist.
Well, joining us now are Martin Gayford, who sat for one of Freud's paintings and who wrote a book about it, and Kimberley Gundle, an artist who was inspired by his work. Is that the way to put it? An inspiration to you, Lucian?
Definitely an inspiration to me. Lucian Freud really got into this, under the skin of his sitter. He saw a window to the soul and inspired people to look further than just the skin. And I feel that his paintings will live on because of that, for definite.
Martin Gayford, what of you in his picture, Man with the Blue Scarf, did you feel that Lucian Freud captured that no one else could?
Well, I thought that it was very interesting to see myself through his eyes, and actually, what the self I saw presented was rather more strong, confident and vigorous looking than I actually felt in the studio when I was sitting there for all those months.
Well, so he saw a strength of character which you were kind of unaware of, do you think?
Well, I think the point about a portrait is that it's about the relation between the painter and the subject, and it told me, I think, a lot about how he saw me. That was really what I discovered about myself. But as far as as the painting, I think it's a wonderful piece of manipulation of oil paint on canvas, and it's, I suspect, going to last a lot longer than I will.
What was he interested in about you, if I can put it like that? Was it? Did your personality matter as much as your looks, if you like?
Yes, well, in that he liked painting people he knew, and he decided which people to paint, he always said, completely on impulse. And I just one day plucked up the courage to suggest myself very diffidently, thinking he'd probably say, that's a nice idea, maybe one day. And he said, what are you doing next Tuesday night? So, bang, suddenly there I was sitting for the next 18 months.
What was that process like, Martin? You had 40-odd sittings, is that right? What did you learn about Lucian Freud and his way of working during that time?
Well, I learnt that part of his secret was immense concentration. An awful lot of the time he spent while he was painting, he was actually thinking and observing, and not very much time putting paint on the canvas. So he'd look at me, very meticulously mix the paint, think about how he was going to make the mark, think about whether it was the right mark. It was quite conceptual, if I can use that word.
Kimberley, he's been described as someone who lived to paint and painted until he died. It was a hugely long career, wasn't it? How did it change? How did his style change over his lifetime?
Well, I think his style became more intense as he became more obsessed with his mark making. And in the beginning, his painting was more flat, and gradually he became more obsessed with getting to grips with the soul of the sitter. His mark making almost became more vivid and more thick and undulating, almost like a landscape of form and a psychological invasion.
As you say, it was almost his early paintings. You know, one thinks of Caroline Blackwood, they're almost hyper-realist in a way.
And then he developed further than that by kind of developing a psychological exploration of his sitters.
Martin, it has been said, and I've been quite surprised by this in some of the commentary, that his pictures of people are neither beautiful nor, in the case of nudes, and we saw Jerry Hall there, particularly sexy. I mean, is that fair, do you think?
I don't know about sexy or beautiful. I think they're truthful, and I think the more you look at them, the more sympathetic and even tender they become. I think he placed great emphasis on truthfulness, and he wanted to paint things as they really were. Actually, I think when you get used to them, when you live with the images, they often are actually rather beautiful.
We're just seeing an image there of Sue, the benefits supervisor. I suppose some people would say that was grotesque, and there were other people with fairly, I don't know what they're called now, extreme bodies, I suppose.
Yes. Well, I asked him about why he was interested in that, so to what he was thinking about, and he said, I was thinking about the anatomy of the individual. And it was the individual which he really always came back to. It wasn't body shapes or quirks. It was the individuality of people which fascinated him.
And I think also, even in painting the surround, call it, of the sitter, he needed to have his model there. He needed the person there because he was capturing the whole essence. It wasn't just the flesh and the cloth. Everything became part of this dedication and compulsion to create something that had a soul.
One of the greats, will we be talking about him in 100 years?
Definitely.
What do you reckon, Martin?
I think he'll last centuries, his art, yes.
Kimberley, I'm interested. Martin was talking a little bit about how Lucian Freud chose his subjects. I mean, he had the well-known Kate Mosses, the Jerry Halls. There were also those like Sue, the benefits supervisor. And then there was the Queen, and that was one that really divided opinion, didn't they? Some people even suggesting he should be sent to the Tower for treason for his representation of her.
Well, I think that it is that truthfulness from his soul. And funnily enough, my father asked to be painted by Lucian Freud, and he declined.
On what grounds?
Well, I suppose he didn't know them. He chooses his sitters himself. He is very, very obsessed with knowing who he wants to paint in a very particular way. And he's said in one interview that he wanted to paint a specific person and not their twin, because that was his way of choosing his sitters, which I quite understand from my own work.
And dogs as well.
And dogs.
Thank you both very much indeed. Finally, they are back on the field at Lord's. I see Martin there putting up with the rain. Thank you for that. As that first test gets underway between England and India. But there was a treat for the crowd a little earlier.
As the home side were practising catches on the outfield, Tom Hampton of the MCC ground staff went after a high ball, unaware of the bucket of whitewash on the grass. There you go, you can see it again.
I can think of some other people who might like a bucket of whitewash this week, but it's not to be. If you missed some of the interviews, they're on the iPad.
This summer, escape to a world of movies.